Hi everyone, welcome to Babies with Knives. I'm your host, Alice Peng, aka Lalla Twiddle, and with me today is my ever-present co-host, Brandon Powers. Hey Brandon.
Howdy, howdy. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing great. So, I am going to be leading us on a character creation today. This is going to be for OSRIC. It's old school reference and index compilation character creation, and this is under the OSR license. Today we're actually going to be focusing in a little bit more though, and we're going to be doing a beta preview for City of Solstice by Chuck Rice. So the final version of the class race restrictions will be tweaked a little possibly. For people who don't know what OSR license or OSRIC specifically is, OSR license is for old school revival. It's going back into the first and second edition of D&D or some of the older systems out there. And OSRIC specifically is for D&D first edition with minor tweaks here and there. So first step we're going to do is going to roll 6 sets of 4d6, drop your lowest, and rearrange those stats as we are going to need later on. I've already rolled my 4d6 drop lowest for the 6 stats. Have you, Brandon?
I've got them from when we tried this a little while ago.
Okay, then. So the stats I have rolled on an online roller, which apparently does me a lot better than when I try and roll stats in real life. I got 13, 16, 13, 10, 15, 12. What about you, Brandon?
I used real dice that actually like me, unlike dice for character creation that don't like you. I've got a pair of 18s, a 17, a 15, and 2 14s.
Awesome. To let our viewers in on a little joke, well, I guess it's not really a joke, but I am terrible at rolling character stats for D&D in real life with real dice, to the point where we've had to have GM just say everybody else at the table rolls a set for me. And in our previous attempts to play around with the system, I actually had like multiple 4s and 5s and 7s on my stats, and my highest was like a 10 when I rolled or something like that. So online roller apparently did me a lot better for the final live. Okay, next we're going to be choosing race out of the OSRIC core book, and we're going to be choosing our classes out of the City of Solstice new setting book. For me, I've chosen to do the combination of a dwarf and a martial artist. Brandon, what about you?
Anything before we get to me? Anything that led you to that decision?
I just had a vision, picture of a short dwarf. I've been feeling like playing a dwarf again lately, and I wanted to play a fisticuffs dwarf. I thought that would be cool.
I love some fisticuffs dwarfs. There's some cool old 3rd edition stuff about them, and a dwarven wrestlers and such like that. It's awesome.
Yep.
I am for the origin on my thought. Years ago, I read Legends of Engelair, the RPG setting, and in there. It's a fate hack, and so they have characters that have leadership and you can have followers. And reading it, I saw that if you were to have a role-playing group do the Hobbit, that you'd only have 3 characters. You'd have Gandalf, you'd have Bilbo, and then you'd have Thorin, and he would have leadership with a large group of dwarves. And so Alice was talking about running a game for it, and so I talked about how I was interested in playing that character, and she had absolutely no interest in whatever it was that I described about it. And so she lifts up her mug. I don't have one here. And it's like, I think you should play the Crafter. It was another concept of mine. She's since then got me a mug which has Crafter written on the bottom because we gave her a hard time about it. But there's a go ahead.
I totally forgot that's where Crafter came from.
Yes. And you didn't like the Crafter idea either that much. Neither one resonated with you at all. And so he's got a mercenary captain here. I was torn. He's got another class, noble. And noble people want to follow you. Mercenary captain, they're following you because you're giving them money. The character would originally have been a noble, but the mercenary captain is on that fighter progression rather than on the cleric progression. And so I wanted to use that more. So I'm going to look at a dwarven, since that was part of the concepts coming from the Hobbit origin, mercenary captain.
Awesome. Well, so to give you guys a quick idea, in case you aren't familiar, each race has restrictions on what class is available to that race. Given that this is beta, we're a little more open about what classes, will be available. So for dwarves, our racials are going to be a +1 Constitution, -1 Charisma. With respect to all but dwarves, we don't take the negative against other dwarves. A +1 to hit against goblins, half-orcs, hobgoblins, and orcs. A +1 bonus per 3.5 points of con to save against magic and poison. And a -4 penalty to attacks made against the dwarf by giants, ogres, ogre mages, titans, and trolls. Because, well, we're small, and those are big, and we're good at fighting them.
And they're the best enemies to fight, because they're awesome.
Yes. For languages, we get Dwarvish, Gnomish, Goblin, Kobold, and Orcish, and the Common Tongue, and the appropriate alignment tongue for us for that. Regardless of intelligence, dwarves may only ever learn 2 languages in addition to those that are listed here. That's a restriction for the race. And lastly, dwarves get something called infravision. Infravision, back in 1st edition, unlike dark vision in later editions, is more like heat vision. We get to see hot and cold. And we also get the ability to understand engineering and stonework much better. So there's a chart about stuff like that where if you're near stone, you'll get a chance to determine whether there's secret doors, whether the engineering is stable, whether you're on a slope that other people can't detect, and you can even, if you roll well, figure out which way's true north, even when you're 100 feet underground.
That's where the concert is at True North, Alice.
Yes, the True North concert. So, multi-class restrictions. There are restrictions, the more restrictive of any of the 2 class requirements apply to multi-class dwarves characters for the use of class abilities. The permitted class options in the base book for OSRIC, this once again does not apply to us today for City of Solstice, is normally assassin, cleric, fighter, thief, or fighter-thief. And our movement rate's going to be 90 feet, Brandon.
Awesome. I'm trucking.
You're trucking. So there's going to be some information about starting age. You can either roll it here or you can, deal with it in your own campaign. In general, fighter types, you're going to start with age 40 plus 5d4. Since Brandon and I are both fighter type-ish characters, we'd be going around, maybe 40 or 50 as our starting age. And we have some racial limitations on stats. Just to go over them really quickly, our racial limitation is going to start at a 8 to 18 on strength, 3 to 17 on dex, con is a 12 to 19, int is a 3 to 18, wisdom 3 to 18, charisma 3 to 16. These are the minimums and the maximums for each of these. If you rolled character stat for that stat that is too low and you can't swap something into that to qualify, you simply cannot play a dwarf. Just like if you cannot follow the baseline for the class, which we'll get to soon, you won't be able to play that class. And there are also level limitations back in 1st edition. So for a dwarf, level limitations max you out at 9th level for assassin, 8th for cleric. Fighters get 9 for 18 strength, 8 if they're 17 strength, and 7 if they're 16 strength or less. So if you're a fighter, you want high strength, so you can level higher. The other classes are not applicable, and these are unlimited on your leveling. So that is going to be our stats for dwarves.
So speaking of stats,
Mm-hmm.
while you were doing that, I got my stats all arranged. I'm throwing an 18 at that strength of mine. So I went ahead and rolled. Actually, is it only fighters that get the percentile, or you just have to be in that fighter type? Fighter,
So
paladin, or ranger. Character rolls an 18 strength, they roll a percentile, and since both of us are actually in that fighter category, that we would be added to that, I'm pretty sure. So I
awesome.
actually got an 87 on the dice, which is puts me pretty high up in it. So I'm 1887 on my strength, giving me +2 to hit and +4 to damage. I went with a 15 dex, gives me 1 point of AC boost. I went all the way up on that 19 con for 5 bonus hit points per level up until you stop rolling hit dice. 14 int and wisdom, and then 16 charisma, which gives me 8 henchmen maximum. Gives me some loyalty bonus and some reaction bonus. And since I don't actually lose that charisma for dwarves, if I'm leading dwarves, I'm even a little bit better than that, which is pretty awesome. That Constitution, Alice was talking about our Constitution to saves bonus. That gives me a +5 on my saves versus magic and poison, which is absolutely fantabulous. Do you got your stats tossed out, Alice?
Yes. I am actually going to be, because of the class that I chose, I can't afford the 18 strength. So my best stat that I can put in that is a 13. My dex is a 16, my con is a 13, my int's a 10, my wisdom's a 15, and my charisma's a 12. I would have loved to get the 18 stat, but I need to qualify for my class, which we'll get to shortly.
As Alice talked about, her stat rolling is legendarily bad. Mine, on the other hand, when we did this old game, this was 20 years ago in second edition, I rolled stats for it, and you would get to mod up half a stat every level or 2 levels. I forget what it was, and we were starting at like 7th level characters, and so I rolled it just on the top of a little speaker right in front of her, but after all the modifications, 17 was the lowest thing the character had, and I kind of feel like I channeled that on my stat rolling this time, and it ended up kind of amazing for me.
Awesome. So what we're going to do next is we're going to switch over to choosing our class. And I'm a little bit behind on filling in my character sheet as I'm leading us through stuff, but that's okay. I'll continue while Brandon's talking. So I'm choosing the martial artist, as I mentioned. The martial artist has a minimum score requirement of strength 12, dex 15, con 9, int 3, wisdom 15, and charisma 13. Brandon, what about your class?
Strength 9, I'm 1887. Dex 6, I've got a 15. Con 7, I'm a 19. Int of 9, I've got 14. Wisdom of 6, I have a 14. Charisma of 9, I have a 16. So I'm well above. And in fact, they provide an experience point bonus, which is a very first edition, second edition kind of thing, if you have a charisma of 16 or higher. And so my charisma is a 16, so I'm getting, I believe it's a 10% bonus on all XP earned.
Isn't that nice? Well,
does martial artist give you an XP bonus on anything?
No, actually, martial artist gives me none on that. It's specifically a none. So,
gotcha.
Why don't you tell people about the class that you chose while I catch up on filling in the character sheet a little bit?
Sure. A couple other just minor details on the class. It can be any alignment. I can use any armors and shields and any weapons. It's going to be using 4 weapon proficiencies and picking up 1 additional weapon proficiency per 2 levels. But it cannot get weapon specialization, which is generally limited to just specific fighters. At first level, I begin recruiting followers, and as long as I can pay them, because they don't necessarily want to follow me, they want to get paid. I can command followers equal to my charisma plus my level, so a first level mercenary captain with a minimum charisma requirements for the subclass could have 10 0-level fighters on the payroll. So, as long as I can pay people, I can have a lot of thugs. They expect to be equipped by their captain, and each standard follower wants 1 gold per week in pay. It might be expensive, but you're asking people to fight and die for you, so they want to live life and be able to retire at some point. The next ability that I start off with is leadership. Just having men is not enough. I must know how to be able to command them effectively. I can choose between different formations for my forces, granting certain bonuses. If I have a lieutenant or a sergeant, I can have forces in different formations so long as I have them leading. I can lead a formation, they lead a formation. And so this allows you to change tactics up and benefit from different formations. Using party members in formation, the mercenary captain formations are very handy for protecting weaker party members, such as mages, or preventing enemies from closing on wounded allies or spellcasting clerics. Apply the AC bonus from any formation that grants 1 to the PCs behind them in marching order. So we can set up formations that actually protect our weaker people. And this is something that attracted me to the class. I loved the 3rd edition Marshal. It was by no means the best designed class, but it had a great flavor and it had some cool abilities to buff the group. I get a bonus to my leadership every 4 levels, so +1 at levels 1 to 3, and then it goes +2 at 4 to 8, etc., etc. Command checks. Many formations are tricky to pull off, even for experienced captains. If I'm asked for a command check, I roll percentile dice, add together the captain's intelligence and charisma scores, so for me that would be 30, and then add 5% for every level above first. So as I go up, it gets better and better to try and succeed at those command checks. Ambush. Mercenary captain commands 1 unit of troops to seek cover and attempt to ambush an enemy. There must be some form of cover for the formation. On a successful command check, the mercenary captain's forces gain their leadership bonus to attack and damage during the surprise segment. And then that's just one example of a formation. There's a lot of different ones. Some of them have a minimum number of soldiers. Envelopment, you need 6. Hammer and Anvil, you need 8, and 2 commanders. Things like that, but they give you lots of different benefits. And I can use any of the formations by being a mercenary captain. It's just I have to be able to get people into those formations, have enough people to be able to use that.
Fantastic.
Yep, and I think that's what I start with. There's, advanced abilities where you get a sergeant at 4th, a lieutenant at 6th, as long as you can pay these people. You get extra attacks, and you can secure a permanent base for your mercenary company, which used to be a big thing in 2nd and 1st edition of when you can establish your wizard's tower or your fighter headquarters, that kind of stuff, Thieves Guild. And then at some point I get my first level, my common soldiers advance basically as I get up in levels. And so that's pretty much what the mercenary captain is doing. As I remember the experience chart, he's advancing in a similar fashion to clerics. 2250 is his first level, 5000, and then he generally just doubles that on most of his levels.
Awesome.
So how are you doing, sweetheart?
Well, for me, the martial artist has a ability called Ki. And I'm going to get a very small key pool as I level. I start with 1 at first level, and this basically means that I get to do something once a day out of it. And I have a variety of things that are similar to monk class from later editions that I can use once a day. And stuff like dodge roll, where I get a +2 to my armor class for 1 round. I get evasion, where I get any spell save would normally inflict half damage, I can take no damage out of it instead. And if I failed, though, it still will inflict full damage if I failed to save. And I've got Flurry Attack option, and these I will choose 1 out of these. So it's a variety of things. Flurry Attack, the martial artist can make 1 extra unarmed attack this round. Light Step, the martial artist can do a 25% hide in shadows. Power Throw, well, I can grab something and I can throw it with extra range. precise attack, I get a bonus +2 to my attack rolls, which goes up as I level. Pressure point attack, which will give me a +2 to all unarmed damage for that round. I can do a reversal, which if the martial artist has been grappled, but not thrown, disarmed, or choked, then I may make a free attack roll to reverse that and no longer be grappled by them. Heal Self is at 5th level, Ignore Pain would be at 6th, so I'm going to avoid going into too much depth on the higher level things, but there's a lot of little things that come.
Yeah, you get, like, my higher level stuff is a little simpler. Than yours.
Yeah, mine's pretty crazy at times. So, the martial artists have devoted their lives to mastering various forms of armed and unarmed combat. Each has a different area of specialization at 1st level, and the martial artists will gain additional specializations as they rise in levels. For me, I was thinking of starting off with striking as my primary, and later on I was looking at picking up grappling if I played this character. So, for striking martial artists gain a +2 damage bonus to all unarmed attacks. This damage bonus is doubled on a charge or against prone targets. This ability also increases the attack bonus granted by the precise attack key ability and the damage bonus granted by the pressure point key ability at higher levels. So I just wanted to start off with being a good striker. And I'm going to be unarmed. So, unarmed, hand-to-hand damage, martial artists are masters of unarmed combat. Their HTH damage is that listed on the class table that modified their unarmed damage by strength normally. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to be starting with. At 1st level, it's pretty basic on getting it put together. The other thing that I wanted to note is that my attack chart, my attack table, is going to be based off the fighter class, and my saving throw table is going to be based off the cleric class. So I get some decent saves, and I get really good attack bonus.
Yeah, I'm filling in my saves right now.
Yeah, I'll be filling in mine when we get to the next part. So, as you guys can see on my character sheet that I'm sharing, I went through and I put in my 6 stats, 13, 16, 14 after my racial mod of dwarf, 10, 15, and 11 after my racial mod of dwarf. And then we went into the OSRIC core book, and I went to the charts, which if you have the book open, you're going to be looking at page 1 according to the PDF numbering. It's actually a little bit into the book, but it's chapter 1 and it's the page 1 on the PDF numbering. And you'll notice for each of the stats you'll have some things to fill in, and this will apply for how it is played as we go on. Brandon.
It's not the unified system that they started with in 3rd edition and beyond.
Yeah, it's a very different system, and the charts vary greatly. So you can't just say, oh, I have a 16 in the stat, it means that I have the same types of mods for my other 16. Completely different. So Brandon, why don't you tell them about your character a little bit while I get my saves filled in?
Okay. Well, I'm going with the name Thorgar for the character. It's since I never played the concept before, I didn't have a name for it. Maybe I did years ago. Since dwarves, the lawful alignment, so I'm looking at lawful good as that crusader person that's trying to bring about a better world in their opinion. I am, going to be on my weapon proficiencies. I was actually just scrolling to that, but I'm going to be looking at standard dwarven type fare of using, an axe and a shield. For range, be a throwing axe, hammer, if you need to bludgeon something. So that's 3 of my weapon proficiencies right there. And then I'd have one left, which probably like a crossbow for a more longer range combat. So a heavy crossbow, which would be all of them: battle axe, hand axe, heavy hammer, and a heavy crossbow. I'm not certain how much money the mercenary captain starts with. I don't think that we have that information in the preview that we've got. But I basically prioritize kind of in that order on my weaponry. Armor, I would buy the heaviest armor that I can afford. I've got a huge strength, so I can definitely afford to put on some armor and grab a good shield to just increase that AC. I'm looking at definitely being frontline character with it, and so being as hard to hit as I can. And that's actually what led me to pick the 15 dex instead of the 14. Initially, I was looking at like a 15 wisdom or int, but I get 1 point of AC bump for that 15 instead of none for the 14.
Awesome. Well, while I fill in my saves and such, I will tell you guys about my character's name and a little bit about him. I am going to be playing Mar Corkton, and
Correcton, yes!
The idea of the character is that he belongs to a very specific dwarven clan, which, as you saw, Brandon had a reaction to, that lives in the mountains in a particular setting. How he would find his way to the city of Solstice would be the fact that the clan and the hold recently has gone through a number of attacks by giant kind, and most recently they were decimated when the giants brought in a dragon that they were working with. And since then, he's basically working to try and build up his prowess and find people that will help him go retake his home.
This sounds awesome. Do you mind if I'm a Correcton as well?
Go ahead.
The two of us can be the leaders of my mercenary company, basically.
Sounds awesome.
Awesome. I love this. I didn't want to be, any of my standard clans.
Yeah, so. I didn't want to be some of my other clans on this one, so I thought that being a Correcton was pretty cool.
Yeah. So, because I've got that huge strength of 1887, I actually get a +2 to hit, which means my THAC0 is going to be 18, which is awesome.
Yeah, that is.
I'm assuming that you're sitting at a THAC0 of 20?
Well, I just went and looked at my chart rather than finding my THAC0. Because at a 13 strength, oops, I wrote the way wrong. Yes, I believe I'm a 20 THAC0. I just realized I wrote the wrong chart. I wrote the level, not the strength.
At 1887, it's only, a +2. I mean, 18 double odd is +3.
Yeah.
One thing about OSRIC, since it is modeling the old school of Dungeons & Dragons, sometimes you're rolling high, sometimes you're rolling low.
Yes.
AC also progresses from 10, being walking around with no dex bonus and no armor type stuff, to -10, which is, really hard to hit. A die roll of a 20 will always connect with somebody. If you're getting a modifier or something to increase, I need a total 23 to hit an AC -10 at my level. So it is a tighter band of ACs.
Yes, a much more restricted band. In specific, you want to be rolling high when you're attacking someone on your D20 roll.
Saves are still roll high. It was skills that you roll low on.
That's right.
Which OSRIC doesn't really get so much into the skills. The DM, it's a lot of DM adjudication on what are you good at and what aren't you, based on your backstory, your attributes, your class, that kind of stuff. Well, Alice, I am ready for the Correcton Crusade to reclaim our homeland in the mountains.
Awesome. So the last step after this, as you see that I've put in my saves, where I want to roll above that, where I rolled my hit chart, where I want to roll to unmodified, those are what I need to hit those ACs. At that point, we basically start filling in the minutia of gear, which in my case, well, I'm a poor little monk, so I get almost nothing. I'm going to go with unarmed to start with, and I might pick up some leather armor. And then after that, we're going to be dealing with gear.
So let me just get this straight. When we fled, you didn't get anything. Like, you were woken up in the night. Me, I was like all ready for something,
Mhm.
and so you fled with nothing and have learned to fight like that since then. And me, I'm like, all armored up and got a shield and weapons, and I'm looking at you and you're like, no, I'm good.
Yep, I'm good. So, Brandon, you want to talk to them about your equipment at the moment?
I mentioned that earlier. Just I don't
Okay.
know how much money I'm getting. I mentioned battle axe would be primary, throwing axe, then hammer, and then a crossbow, depending on how much cash money there is. But by all means, getting a good heavy armor for myself as well as a sturdy shield are going to be my priorities. One thing I do really like in OSRIC is on page 31, based on the number in the bottom corner of the book. Uh, this is the height and weight chart, and they don't just tell you, oh, this is an average height and then you can be this. They give you, are you small, slim, normal, stout, tall, or outsize? And so it gives you a wide range. And so if you just say, oh yeah, I kind of want to be a big, beefy, heavy set dwarf, and you get a better idea than just that wide range where people just kind of throw a number at it.
Well, awesome. For me, I do get proficiencies in weapons. I start with 2 plus 1 every 2 levels, but I will have no armor or shield proficiencies ever. So I'm basically starting at an AC 8 until I start getting magic items. But AC 8 isn't too bad back in the day, It's not great, but it could be a lot worse.
I'm AC 9 before I put my armor on.
Let's look at it this way. I'm an AC of 8, and it takes a 13 up on the D20 to hit myself. And I'm not the best fighter of the bunch, but I do get one of the better charts to work with.
You will advance quickly, and your
Yes,
ability to punch yourself in the face.
comparatively. So a lot of people will require, like a 15 up to hit me on a D20. So that's missing me 25% of the time. And hopefully I can find a wizard or someone who will give me a little bit bonus to that, and that'll be better. Yep. And, well, I don't think we need to go over buying gear. Do you, Brandon? I think gear is
No, especially
self-explanatory.
since we don't have our specific monies.
Yeah.
I listed kind of the priority that I'd have and the reason why. And since you don't, your weapon and your armor aren't things that you're doing, you're going for SAG, standard adventuring gear.
Yes, exactly. So, thank you very much for watching. Brandon, do you have any closing thoughts before we close up?
Like I said, I'm ready for us to get involved in this crusade to retake the Clan Corkton's mountain homes stronghold.
It sounds like City of Solstice can probably give us some experience, make us some money, and we can learn how to beat bad people up and eventually go home and find our home.
Yeah, and City of Solstice, they're saying that it's like the Untouchables, and so probably we're here trying to get money to get our own thing, and dealing with a city full of bad stuff and just trying to survive at the moment. Which, as displaced dwarves that only have a handful of us, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. Well, once again, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye.